Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. We have the pleasure of having Mr. Justin Donald here. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on your show, Austin.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Matthew Tefke, for the intro. And what I like to do on my show is I like to let my guests tell their story and start their story where they want to, and then we kind of go from there. So I'll let you take it away.
Oh, fun. Well, I feel like there's, infinite directions I could go in. I had a real nice upbringing as a child, parents that loved me tremendously and worked hard and were good role models. So I feel very, very privileged to be able to say that about my family. I started working at a really young age in 7th grade. I actually remember the conversation with my mom. And I said, "Hey, Mom, can I get some money?" And at that time I was, getting an allowance, doing chores around the house. And she's like, "Hey, I'm not going to be your bank. So, if you want money, go get a job." So I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know that I should be thinking about that." I'm a 7th grader. So I got started early, and I took, there aren't a whole lot of options when you're in 7th grade to work. So I took an opportunity where I was paid 100% on commission to sell newspaper subscriptions door to door. And at that point in my life, I was very shy. I was very awkward, probably. I definitely was very low in confidence, but let me assure you, I was horrible at it. All right. I mean, I was just awful. And the person that was running this crew, he wasn't trying to help build great salespeople. He just dropped people off, picked them up. I mean, this is back in a time, I guess, where that's normal. Today, I don't know if you could do that or if people would feel so comfortable about it. But, I was doing this in 7th grade, and you get no's said to you enough times, and eventually you just become kind of numb to it. So it kind of just stopped being something that I took personally. And it was one of the greatest, resources or greatest discoveries I ever made, is that it has nothing to do with me, everything to do with them. And once I got past that, I actually got good at selling newspaper subscriptions, and did that from my 7th grade year all the way through the time that I was done with high school. And that actually was my first entrepreneurial experience, because I started building my own crew as I actually got good at selling these subscriptions to people that didn't even want them, to, like, in some cases, garbage newspapers, and so my boss is like, you've got to start training people, create a script, write it down, we'll laminate it, we'll put it on these clipboards. And so we did. I built a crew, and that really helped me earn some great income while I was a high school, middle school, and especially once I got to high school and I actually got really good at it. So yeah, that was kind of, the early years for me.
I love that. Dude, the universe is crazy. I just got off the Zoom call with one of my friends, and I sent his son, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's in 10th grade, and he's in entrepreneurship school. And I just told him his idea, but I gave him a better one. And he was like, "Oh, man." And he's like, and his dad was like, "You can make this a business now." I just told him I would invest in his business. And he was like, "This is crazy." And so, that's the world we're in now. Where, Aaron and Musa Stegi, who you mentioned their kids have businesses. Yeah. I love this, right? Whether or not you go in a worker, it really, I grew up in the restaurant business when I was 17, and you want to talk about teach you about life, and so it's that just the options available now for young kids. And I'm sure you had a lot going for you. So when you were in college, did you start a second business? I mean, you were already ready.
Yeah, so I did. I felt really ready. I actually felt like I was good at sales because of that. And at the end of graduation from high school, I had this little Post-it on my door offering a pretty high paying summer job. And I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. So I reached out, and it's for this company called Cutco. And I know a lot of people are probably familiar with them, and really it's kind of built around a high quality line of kitchen cutlery and other houseware items. And so I figured, you know what, I might as well give this a try. I had a friend that was doing it, and he did really well. And I figured, well, if he could do this, I could do this. And actually, I didn't know he was working there until I went in and I saw him. I was like, oh, this is where you're working? Get out of here. So, I had a lot of confidence that I could do it based on the skill set that I had, and I did pretty well. I would say that I had a better start as a new person than probably most people do. But my work ethic wasn't necessarily there. I was juggling two jobs. I had my crew that I was taking out to sell newspaper subscriptions. At this point in time, I didn't sell anymore. I just had people that sold under me. And I was like, well, why don't I work and try and do this Cutco thing? And it was hard to juggle both of them. And I made a decision that I was going to go all in on the Cutco one and stop the newspaper business. And that ended up being just an unbelievable decision because I learned so much. I got great at working with people and fine-tuning my sales skills and cold calling people and just foundational skills and soft skills that have really served me well. And then while I was in college, this is how I paid for college. So I went to University of Illinois. My parents couldn't afford to send me to school, but they wanted me to go. And I was the first person in my family, an extended family, to graduate from college. Both of my parents went for a year and dropped out, got married, and no one else in my family had graduated. So I knew that was a goal that I wanted, and I had to find a way to pay for it. And selling Cutco was great because I was paid based on how hard I worked. And I worked really hard in spurts, on summer break, on winter break. And I ended up being able to afford a $15,000 a year college tuition plus room and board each year I was there. And then my junior year, I had an opportunity to open up an office with them. So it was in between it was like my junior year to my senior year. And this was my first real experience with like a lot of employees, with having a receptionist, with hiring and training teams. I mean, I had a team of like 50 to 75 people at any given time during the peak months of summer. And I mean, talk about transformational skills. We ended up doing really well. I won a trip to Spain. It was the big company trip, and I had never been out of North America before. In fact, I'd only been one time out of the US, and that was to Mexico on a mission trip with my church. Other than that, I had never been out of the country. And then once I got a taste of that, it was game over. All I wanted to do was go travel. I was any incentive contest you put together, I am going to win it. I want to go check out the world. So, that I ended up moving up pretty fast with them, and I ended up opening up a good number of offices. At one point, I had 40 offices open for them as a manager. And I did that for a career for a period of time, was one of the top performing managers with them, and earned Hall of Fame as a manager at, I think, 23 years old, which is still one of the youngest that they've ever had.
Wow. First of all. Second of all, I've interviewed a lot of top investors. I'm talking, big multifamily guys, big people in business. And one of the things that keeps coming around is maybe they didn't want to, but they wound up working a job where they had to do cold calling or door knocking. I heard something the other day, and it was like the growth mindset and sales skills are all you need to survive in this world. And I think that sales gets a bad rap a lot of times, but ultimately the most polished, the most experienced people I have with other people or in business seem to, I'm just curious your thought on it, seem to like be the ones that come out on top when they have that sales training.
Yeah, I agree, because you learn to have grit, and you learn to persevere, and you learn how to handle objections, but in a thoughtful way. So, it depends on the sales training you've had. Is your sales script and is your training manipulative? Well, you may not experience the same things that other people who don't have a script like that are going to experience. If you can have like a really good sales script that is very transparent and handles objections in a way that doesn't make people, feel inferior or like they have to do something. I think that matters. But yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, if you can build a comfort with talking to people you don't know in person, over the phone, however it goes, on Zoom today, these days, I mean, that is the skill set for life, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And when you're 23 and you're getting all those awards, what was the next move for you? I mean, because to have that much amazingness happen so soon, where do you go from there?
Well, my bigger overarching, kind of goals, dreams, picture was to eventually replace my earned income with passive income. And so, you had mentioned before about Robert Kiyosaki, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of him. And I started reading his books really early. And his first one was great, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The one that had the biggest impact on me, though, was Cash Flow Quadrant. I read that very early into my professional career. Actually, I think the first time I read it, I don't even know that I was quite into my professional career yet. And then the second time was after I had just opened up my first office as a college graduate, and so in my mind, I was like, wow, this is so true. Like, I'm working really hard, and these hours are producing a great income. I'm able to earn more than my peers because I'm willing to work harder, and I have an opportunity that incentivizes me. So I'm very thankful for that. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be working this hard when I have kids, when I'm married, when I'm 40, 50, 60, right? So in my mind, it's like, okay, I can do this now, but this isn't sustainable. I need to figure out either a way to build systems and leverage people, which I did do, and B, a way to replicate the income with assets that produce income as opposed to my time producing income. And so that, those are two big focuses for me. So, big realization I had from reading that book, I thought I was a business owner. I had my own business. And technically, when I was running an office with Cutco, I had my own business, but I didn't own necessarily that asset, right? So I had an LLC. I had employees, I had all these things, but I didn't do fulfillment. There's a lot that I didn't do. So it's like running a part of a business, which is still amazing experience. But I realized that, number one, it's just going to require a lot of my time, and I need to systematize that. And I really want to be in a place where I can buy that time back. I want to buy freedom of time to do the things that I want to do. So I started focusing on investing in real estate, in cash flow producing real estate, to be able to first replace my wife's income. She was a teacher, and I wanted to be able to cover what she was earning, so that she could stop and have that freedom first. And then we could start a family. And then eventually I would be able to replace my income, which we did, a few years later.
And it's everybody that I've met, and I coach some people that make some good money. But one of the skills that I've seen, especially my buddy that works for UT, is that ultimately you can make a good living, right? 300 grand, 400 grand, 500 grand. But if you don't own your time, then you don't really own anything. And the people that seem to wise up to that or notice it quicker seem to not be enamored by the short-term look. I think one of the big things in society that we've moved away from is a plan, like a plan of consistency. And so I think I love that you saw that so quickly, is like, yeah, this might be great, but ultimately it's not going to get me to travel across the United States all the time.
Yeah. And you got to be careful, right? A lot of people get, used to the ego that they have, or the significance that they have, right? The ego holds them in because they're being recognized, they're being praised. They can use the job title of an entrepreneur or an executive or whatever it is. There's something alluring or enticing or sexy about that, moniker, whatever it is, right? And then you also need to be careful about becoming a slave to the income that you make. And so sometimes it's a combination of both. Maybe, ego's tied in because you want that significance and you want to be able to tell people you work for XYZ company or you started your own business. But then there's also the income that you're earning, where if you left it or if you did something else, your quality of life might shift. So it's hard to make that move. Most people, I think, they become a slave to the income that they make, whether they're an entrepreneur or whether they work for someone else. there's comfort in knowing what it's supposed to look like or what it has looked like. And when you don't change it, it's a little more automatic. But I also find that in those situations, for me at least, life can get a little more stale. And so I don't want to be boxed into that. I actually want some of the thrill and some of the adventure that, comes from taking a step out of my comfort zone and trying something new and learning something new. I think we all have to be careful. I mean, still today, I feel like I've got to be careful to make sure that whatever I'm doing, is truly serving my family and I, because I don't want to fall back into a trap of, the golden handcuffs or into doing something because of the significance that it creates. If it's not doing something that's going to have huge impact as well.
No, I love that. And so when you started investing in real estate, what piqued your interest? What did you start investing in right off the bat?
Well, I thought I was going to start. I mean, technically, my first investment was in my own condo, and I turned that into my first rental because right when I bought it, I had an opportunity to kind of get promoted in Cutco from running one office to having 3 states that I oversaw. So I was like, all right, well, I got to take this opportunity. But the problem is I bought my place, and then instead of selling it in the hottest market that existed at that time, I decided not to do that, to rent and to have negative cash flow and then have the market crash on top of it. And then I got stuck with that asset, and I was like, man,
this is great.
This was not a good way to do it. I was upside down when I eventually did sell it. I mean, it was a doozy of a first experience. And I just learned, like, I can't, don't try to take what you're buying as a residence and make it real, a rental. Like if I want to get into the rental business, I need to buy some assets that are good rental assets. Mm-hmm. And so I had a friend, we were going to start a company, a real estate company with single family home rentals. And then he was like, I'm going to start investing in mobile home parks. And I was like, that sounds really crazy. I don't know anything about it, but it doesn't sound really cool. So, I don't know about that. And I watched him and he did well with it. So I was like, all right, let me transition here. And so I started investing in real estate, specifically in mobile home parks to get started. And it was very lucrative, and at first, it seems like really, it seems tough to like own all these units, like right out of the gates, but it really isn't. And the learning curve is not too challenging. And so it was just a nice blessing. The first park that we bought replaced my wife's income. And the second park that we bought replaced our bare minimum expenses. And then the third park that we bought replaced my income. And then the fourth park and fifth park just went to extra cash flow that we then could invest into other businesses and other real estate and other cash flowing opportunities.
Amazing. And how many units do you know how many units you have currly?
Right now we have around 500.
Okay.
We've sold some too. I mean, the goal when we first started was to buy and hold, but we had an opportunity to sell one in a short period of time, and we were able to flip that and buy 2 others with the proceeds. So we've sold, whenever it makes sense. I just want to do it in a way that's most tax efficient.
Sure. And if you look at like one of the things I love to do is like psychology major. I follow the trends of, society. And I think we have maybe a rural flip around of the reurbanization of America with coronavirus and stuff like that. And if you look at, rents and mortgages are not going down, they're going up. And so, I just went to 16 states this year, traveling around, visiting people, working from the road. If you drive by every RV park and every mobile home park, they're full. And so with society moving, a lot of my friends are high up in the oil business in Southeast Texas, right? And they're on 5-year contracts. A lot of those guys, they don't even live there. And so although it might not be sexy, but I also think that the mobility of America is changing the fact that these things are available and are great assets to invest in. And so, we work in the Airbnb space. We're looking at little cabins and RV parks and stuff like that. So, when you got into it and you were younger, it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but man, I bet it looks a lot different on a P&L sheet, doesn't it?
It sure does. And, when you think about it, so number one, it's affordable housing, which is great. It's virtually recession proof. I mean, during all of COVID, it has been just fantastic for us. We've increased our occupancy tremendously and our retention has been unbelievable. And we've also had, we've brought great people in, like very good quality tenants. And so, in fact, we were talking about our mutual friend, Matt. I helped him with a mobile home park that he had here. I helped him analyze it. I actually walked the property with him.
I love it.
It was really cool seeing him get in the game too. So, that's really exciting. But yeah, I mean, it's an unbelievable asset class. And if you are only being one, I like that one a lot. I mean, I have since diversified into a lot of different things. I've got, I don't know, probably, easily over 100 different active investments now, but that's still one of my favorites. And I'm still holding a good portion of that portfolio.
And what is besides the active investing, is there another business that you're focused on right now? That's your main gig?
Yeah. So for a long time, I've just been more of like an investor, a practitioner, right? And recently, I've been just approached by a lot of friends and colleagues and acquaintances that said, hey, can you teach us what you're doing? And people have asked me for years to do it. They've asked me to write books, write courses, do all kinds of stuff. And I've just kind of been like, I'll do it later, And one of my buddies said, hey, what happens if you die and your daughter never gets to learn about any of this? And it was like a total dagger, So I was like, man, number one, I'm really appreciative that you're my good friend and you're speaking truth. But number two, man, that's real. That's rough. But, I'm thankful for that because I literally started writing my book days later and, I've just finished it. It's going to come out here on January 12th and I'm excited about it. So the new business is all built around the book and the brand of the lifestyle investor, which is my take on a way to live an amazing life and a life that is by your design, not by someone else's design, not reacting to the world, but being proactive and being able to live off of the passive income of your investments and have true financial independence and freedom to do what you want and with the people that you love and care most, that care most about. So that is kind of my passion project. This is one business. This is my first business ever that my goal is not to scale it. I'd like to get the word out, but my goal is not to scale it. Like this is a real fun business for me because it's years, it's decades of what I have spent my time doing. And I get to teach people and help people and celebrate financial freedom with them. So, I've got a coaching practice with, a very affluent crowd of entrepreneurs and executives that just don't know how to create cash flow in their life. And they're handicapped because they have, in many cases, a really high cost of living. And if they leave it or if they sell their business, they're in trouble. And entrepreneurs generally are not equipped very well to invest. So most of them fall flat on their face when they invest. And they're like, holy cow, if I do this, I'm going to keep losing all my money because they'll see fast that they spend their principal down. So I help them to be able to cash flow. And then from there, I had too much demand for that, that coaching product that what I was willing to do. There's only a handful. I've got a waiting list. I literally only coach 4 to 6 people a year. And so we built a mastermind. So that was a little bit more group coaching. And that's been a lot of fun. And people have enjoyed that. In fact, our last event that we just did yesterday to close out our year-end event, I got D-Lynn Proctor, who is, one of the world's greatest master sommeliers. And he hosted and did this really cool wine event.
I sold wine for 20 years. So I'm very aware of who he is. Yes.
He's amazing. We just had such a blast. And he spent a couple hours with our group and we went through some delicious Francesca wine and it was really cool. But yeah, to me, it's like, I want to have these avenues to have impact. And I realize that not everyone can afford, some of the programs that I do. And that's why I have a podcast that is free, The Lifestyle Investor. That's why I have a book that's really cheap. And so, that to me, it's my way of being able to share everything. And by the way, all the proceeds of my book are going to charity. So, and I feel great about that. In fact, I'm talking about how to have freedom in your life. And I actually have just tremendous like passion and excitement for the fact that the money from this book can go towards real freedom that people in this world don't even have, like basic human freedoms, because they are sex trafficked or because, they're a slave in some way, shape, or form. And so, that really is exciting to me.
So this podcast was created for this conversation, like, because you are what I talk about on a daily basis, because my big rail right now is too many times we create a business and then build a lifestyle around it instead of creating a lifestyle and building a business around it. And the ultimate issue that people don't understand, right? Everybody wants to get into Airbnb, but they don't understand what it's going to do to their lifestyle. So instead of finding out what they like or what they need, they don't invest that way. They invest in the shiny object syndrome. And what you're teaching and you're coaching is exactly what I talk about and yap about every day, is that you don't need, you don't need to make $10,000 a month. But what we've done in society is we keep pushing that debt nut higher and higher. And I saw it. We had 27 properties in 7 states, and we would make crazy money in San Diego. We had 6 properties in San Diego, but the overall nut on the property, we couldn't make any money. And then we had a property in San Antonio that I bought for 50, and we put 50 in, and all in it was 700 a month. Well, the project did $3,000 a month. And so it's like, it made me wake up to the fact that it doesn't matter what the property looks like if your overall expenses, right? And that's my issue with wholesale companies. They show this high gross product, but their margins is like 3%. That doesn't do anything for me, because you're having to feed the beast.
That's right. Yeah, you got to be really careful what you invest in. And, for me, I'm a big fan of a lot of people like want to put their money in the stock market so that they don't have to think about it and hope that it works, or, through a qualified plan, or maybe they do some equity investing in companies and hope that it works out. To me, this is like a little more of a risky way to invest. I like to buy assets that produce income that can cover your lifestyle, because once your lifestyle is covered, then you can buy your time back and you can think about, what do I want out of life? Like, how do I want to spend my time?
Mm-hmm.
What are my true passions? What are my true talents?
Mm-hmm.
What do I want to work on? And who do I want to work on it with? And what type of trips do I want to take? And now that I, I'm not a slave to a job, I can travel anywhere for as long as I want, so those are the things that I really get excited helping people, think about and teach, because most people are they default to a nest egg approach or to conventional financial investment, which I think is propaganda from Wall Street. It's the people that want your money. So,
ultimately, I think the main issue that I see is that too many times in life, we make decisions from a place of weakness, which then in turn turns into emotion, which then you make a double mistake, instead of operating, like you said, from a place that your expenses are covered, so you can make decisions from a place of strengthness.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, by the way, I think there's a time and a place for the stock market. I think banking on the U.S. economy to do well, if you are really going to invest and not touch it and not be an emotional investor, and it's not the 100% of your assets. I think that there's, a lot of good that can be done there, but most people put all their eggs in that one basket. And then when stuff gets crazy, they pull their money out. And then when, stuff's super high, they buy back in. So most people just don't do that right. We're emotional beings. And if we listen to our emotions, we're going to really be in trouble.
My financial advisor's favorite thing when he's around a bunch of real estate investors is that if your house was a stock, he goes, you idiots would be selling this thing 40 times a month. He's like, you couldn't handle it because you're too emotional about real estate. He's like, you couldn't do it. He said, if it was a ticker that was on your phone and said your house lost $5,000, y'all would lose your mind. Like, but you don't see it that way, right? And I thought that was such an important. So you're around all these amazing individuals. You have a great mastermind. I saw you having breakfast with Hal Elrod. You have David Osborne on your show. A lot of my audience are young investors or young people getting in the game. What are these gentlemen and these women doing every day that you as a coach see as an overall, factor, if it's 1 or 2 things or 3 things that they're doing every day, that's a must because I believe that daily habits are the true game changer. The research I've done.
I'd agree with that. I think the most important thing you can do is feed your mind. I think the education, it's so first and foremost, it's if you think about from a consistency standpoint, what are you doing consistently? You said it, having a routine. So I think it's first like feeding your mind, educating yourself with books and podcasts on the topics that are relevant to get you to where you want to go. So not just entertainment. And I think it's okay to do some entertainment, right? But how about like good quality content that's going to get you from point A to point B? And with regularity, you do that constantly. So I think number one is that be intentional with what you're learning, and that in fact you are learning regularly. Number two, I think it's your peer group. Who are you spending time around? Because they're going to influence the way that you think. They're going to influence the choices that you make. They're going to influence what the status quo is, because their status quo is going to be different than your status quo. So that would be number two. And number three would be get a mentor of some capacity that, in a capacity that has done what it is that you want to do. So don't just get someone that, is a coach. All right. That's great. And it could be a good situation. It might not be a good situation. Find the person that's doing what you want and then have them coach you. And, if they don't know who you are, then get on their radar. A lot of the people that I spend time with today, they had no clue who I was, but I was persistent about asking them to coffee, asking them to lunch, asking them to dinner, to the point that, some people I'd asked many times and they finally caved, and then I always paid, and they're not used to that. They try and pay. And I'm like, no, I got this. I invited you out. I think that goes a long way.
You get it. You get it. I've told this story a couple of times. I haven't told it often, but I met Matty A through DMs, super persistent. I asked a question I shouldn't have asked, and he let me know it. He just didn't answer. He's like, you haven't, let's hold off on the advice first. Just let's get to know each other. And then he told me he had 15 minutes. And so I bought a plane ticket and I flew across the country, and I sat down and had coffee with him, and that turned into an hour and a half. And then turned into me building out his platform for his hotel. And, we're friends. We've gone on vacation together. And so ultimately, I think why those things have happened for me, and I feel like you have the same attitude, is I always tell my clients, what if? What if this is the opportunity, right? But to have that optimism and that open mind really allows, I guess, in a metaphysical way, to let the universe pay you back because you believe, right?
Yeah. And take the chance. You took the chance buying a ticket. You could have had a delayed flight. He could have truly only met with you for 15 minutes, but you took that opportunity. You took your shot, because what if this was that one time? And it was. It's maybe not the only one time, but it was the most relevant and important and impactful time at that time in your life.
That's a great point. I haven't thought about that before. That's awesome. And so ultimately, what is the book? Because I want to talk about the book, because I know it's coming out soon. What is it based around? Kind of the teachings. What are you sharing?
Yeah. So the book is, so the name of the book is The Lifestyle Investor, and the subtitle's The 10 Commandments of Cash Flow Investing for Financial Freedom. Well, technically for passive income and financial freedom. Basically what it is it's my criteria for investing, right? What are my 10 commandments or 10 criteria that I look for to invest, to get passive income, to create financial freedom, right? So that's what the book's about. And I have, I've spent a lot of time, going through and figuring out what those are, and how, if someone follows these criteria, how it can help them make good investment decisions.
I love it. And I already decided that I'm probably going to buy 20 or 30 copies and give them to all my coaching clients. And then we run a mastermind that we're launching in 2 weeks for Tim Rhodes, One Life Fully Lived. So I'm going to give those to those people too. So,
oh, thank you. That's awesome. That's very kind of you.
Because this is what matters to me, is I literally don't care how much money you make. I really don't care how much money you make, because if you don't own your life and you don't own your lifestyle, because when we had said properties, I was getting 85 to 120 messages a day. And my ex-wife, my wife at the time, looked at me and she goes, "You look miserable." And I go, "I am fucking miserable." And I had to blow it all up and lose money to realize that I didn't want that. And it was a retooling of my life. But ultimately, I'm in a position now where if you, like, as my coach would say, if you're walking into a hallway with no lights and no doors, but knowing that you're walking down the true path, and that's what I think, that's what basically you're saying is, like, you can chase all these fancy things and you can chase these different shiny objects, but make sure that it fits what you're doing. And mobile home parking gave you the freedom to go chase these other things. And that's what, like, everybody I meet, and I'm funny if you hear this too, I meet a lot of people that have a lot of real estate that don't even really love real estate.
Yeah, you got to be careful because money's a drug. And, the more you have, the more you want. So if money is a means, right? It should be a means. It's a medium of exchange. So if you're using it as a barometer for how much better or worse you are than someone else, I think that doesn't serve you. And just because you have more money doesn't make you better. But I think in our society, a lot of the time, that's the way it is, especially for, like, your alpha male or female. It's like, either look at all the achievements that I have, or look at this prestigious company that I've worked my way up through, or look at all the money and success or toys that I have. And you've got to be careful, in my opinion, to not become a slave to that income that you make. And at the end of the day, when someone is dying, no one says, I wish that I would have bought, one more house, or I wish I would have, bought more toys and had a fancy car. It's always about the relationships. Maybe sometimes it's like, maybe I would have gone out and traveled more and learned about more of the world. But 99% of the time, it's like, I wish I had a better relationship with this person. I'm so thankful for the relationship I have with this person. It's about the people. And so if that can be the focal point, and you can earn in a way that you support, you spending time with the people you care most about, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a tool to help support what is even greater than the accumulation of money. And then as you get money, the more that you can work that muscle of giving, I think then the easier it becomes to give, and then the more impact it can have. And also the less of a grip money can have on you.
Amazing. I'm not going to say anything else because that's perfect. If people want to find out about you, they want to find out the book, how do they do that?
Yeah. So my website's justindonald.com. And if you go on there, so there's a couple different options. Number one is, you can go directly, wherever to buy it, Amazon or wherever. And if you do that there, the proceeds go to charity, or you can go to justindonald.com/free book. And I will give you a book for free. You just pay for shipping. And there are other options on there. I've got a really cool online course that I just built that I'm excited about, that we're literally just rolling out right now, that I have gotten tremendous feedback on, and a bunch of other things. There are a lot of free resources on there that you're welcome to, to get access to and download. My 10 commandments are there. So feel free to do whatever's best, but would love to have anyone's support and really want to have the ability to impact, people with this message of how to invest in a different way than what you probably realize and what most people realize. And number two, how to have impact in a way, A, where you take that to your community, and B, where profits can go to organizations that do good work around the world for buying human freedom and, life.
I love it. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends, and we appreciate y'all listening. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Austin. This is great.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.